Good evening. Hello, people. Happy Monday. Hey, Maria. How are you? How's Texas treating you? Smart move getting out of Jersey. Except you're going to miss the food. Hey, Cheryl. You're going to miss the food, Maria. I promise you. Big time. Although in the Dallas area, there's good food too, but nothing is like North Jersey. Hello, Drew. Just give people a minute to jump on. Hey, John. Hello, Lauren. Happy Monday, people. Tim, how are you, buddy? Yeah, I didn't plan on doing this, but then someone made a post that just got me thinking. Hello, Nick. Hello, Lisa. So I thought, let's talk about something here, right? Get the Monday started. We're dealing with crummy weather here. Everything's flooded and wet and disgusting. I got a hurt dog here and all that good stuff. Hey, Matt. Good. I'm glad to hear it, Matt. If you have any questions or have any issues, call. Definitely call. If you want to send videos, send videos. All right. Hey, Tutor, this is about you guys over there. It may be totally useless, but I figure, all right, I'm just going to jump right into it instead of waiting too long here. Okay. So obviously, many of you know about, hey, Kayla, Jane, many of you know about the e-collar ban that was just proposed in England, which is supposed to take place, I believe, in February of 2024, if I'm not mistaken, right? So there's some fine people over there. James Penrith, as always, who has been busting his butt for a really long time. Danny Wells, and I'm sure there's others too. I just can't think off the top of my head. People are working real hard to fight that, and rightfully so, okay? So, of course, there's myself, there's several other people over here that are jumping on board to try to help out. But obviously, there's only so much we could do from here. So I think we just have to keep trying. Whatever we could do to help our fellow dog people out over in the UK, right? I've seen what it's like in countries that ban tools. I've trained dogs in a few of them, and it's a very, very different life for the dogs in some of these places and dog owners, okay? So I'm just going to do a little something different today, and it may be absolutely, completely useless. There's a very good chance I don't know. But I'm going to discuss several different dogs, ones that either people know of that have been able to follow online or from seminars, but cases where enough people were there to see things and how this tool can benefit so many. Because in my opinion, I think one of the big issues that we struggle with all over the world, the people who push these bans and pass these bans, there's a lot of ignorance, meaning they don't quite understand what they are banning, what they're going after, right? For instance, when you hear the biggest name purely positive dog trainers speak out and you hear them say, there's no reason you don't need a shock collar to teach this. You don't need a shock collar to teach that. You don't need a shock collar to get your dog to do this. Yeah, no kidding. They're usually correct because they imagine, I know this for a fact because I talked to many of them. A lot of people, either out of just not understanding, out of innocent ignorance, right? Just not understanding, or they're just dishonest and they have a lot of financial gains in doing what they do, right? Let's be honest. And so it leads the everyday dog owner when they look at both sides. Of course, that side is always going to sound better because they imagine these things that dog trainers do with e-collars, right? Again, you don't need a shock collar or an e-collar to get your dog to do this. The best trainers out there, guys, aren't doing that stuff. They're not doing with the force-free people or the people in the government's passing these bans what they think they're doing. So I'm going to just talk about a few specific cases, and hopefully it's a long shot, but maybe someone over in England that has anything to do with this can look at this and say, I never thought about that. I'm probably wasting my time, but I'm trying something, right? On top of the things that our good friends, James and Danny and everyone else over there fighting. So this morning, my friend Sue, hello Sue, posted something on my page. She posted something on a private page and I asked her to share it. And I didn't ask her to post this. She's just always posting great stuff about her dog and where they're at right now. And I want to give you a little backstory about Sue. We're going to start off with her, but then we're going to move on to a few very specific, difficult cases on why this tool is so important, but how it's not being used the way people think it's being used in most cases, right? So Sue, I met Sue when I started doing these group classes last year. Not your typical group classes. They were more done like little tiny baby seminars, right? My group classes go anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, usually closer to 6. So Sue was one of these wonderful people, along with her friend Ellen, that would drive up the day before all the way from down in Georgia, spend the night in a hotel, bring their dogs, and come to group class the next day and then drive home. Very dedicated individual. The first time I saw Sue, she was standing behind her car with her husband and her 2 doodles. And as I walked through the parking lot, I can't remember if it was just the one dog or both. I think it was both. Just exploded like they wanted to eat me. And very bad behavior, dragging Sue. She couldn't control them. And I just stopped and I said, give me the dog. And I took the dog, the instigator, and I just took him away from her. And I took the leash because I knew he was full of crap. He wasn't a tough guy like he was trying to be. I didn't proceed to put a prong collar on him. I didn't proceed to put an e-collar on him. I just took him and showed him that tool doesn't work for you anymore. I know who you are. Okay? I know who you are. To which his response was, oh, geez. He just turned around with his back to me, looking at Mom like, what do I do now? This always works. This always works. And all of a sudden it's not working, right? So not to make this too long, Sue continued to come up every group class for several months. Wonderful thing. But I want you guys to understand, Sue wasn't introduced to an e-collar. Neither was her dog or anyone else in the group until the end of the process. And it was a long process. We met for pretty much the whole year. I think we started meeting in January and went through most of the year. Okay. What did we do in that time? We worked on the basics constantly, but more importantly, we worked with the owners. We educated the owners constantly, the simplicity of things, right? So now Sue's dogs lived on a leash. They've pulled her down. They've knocked her over. They've wanted to chase deer. She lives out in the country in Georgia. A lot of typical problems. Sue is your typical everyday dog owner that struggles and doesn't know what to do, who goes to dog trainers and spends thousands of dollars, force-free trainers, balance trainers, they run the gamut, right? Both sides, without ever getting any real help. Because people focus on tools, or they focus on bribery and food and treats. And I use food, I use tools, I use it all, right? But I take a very different approach, as do a lot of other very good dog trainers out there. We educate the owner. So by the time we put e-collars on these dogs, It was never about stopping those behaviors, punishing those behaviors. I just don't do that. But the people over in England and the force-free community, that's what they think. So now when Sue made that beautiful post this morning showing her dogs that she can go out with them off leash with deer running by, close by, and her dogs no longer chase the deer. And Sue did not have to be a jerk to her dogs to achieve that. She didn't have to be, right? We taught Sue how to train. She taught her dogs how to learn, and she continues to get better and better and better. But with the proper use of that tool, when I say proper, I'm just going to say the way I use it, okay? We're not teaching behaviors with it. We're not putting it on the dog trying to stop behaviors. The number one reason that myself and my clients utilize e-collars is for off-leash freedom. That's the main reason. And we don't teach it. You have to understand, most people, I just made a post about this the other day, negative reinforcement is very misunderstood. So is punishment. I don't use much punishment in dog training. Very rarely, right? Unfortunately, most people who think they're using punishment are not. We're not going to get into that anyway. Do enormous number of so-called balanced dog trainers use the e-collar improperly? Absolutely. Absolutely. But they also use a leash improperly, a flat collar improperly, a head halter improperly. They use food improperly, right? If you understand behavior, if you understand how to train a dog with a leash, then you have a big advantage when it comes to the e-collar. But an e-collar is just a leash that's not connected to you. That is it. All the things you hear, how you're going to physically harm your dog with an e-collar, you're going to burn your dog, you're going to leave scars on your dog. That's just not true. Can you damage your dog mentally? Can you cause pain? Absolutely. Do people do that? Absolutely. But they do it with everything. They do it with their hands. They do it with their feet. And now when you take this tool away, people like Sue would never get to enjoy her dogs to the fullest. And their dogs would never get to be fulfilled and get to run free like they're supposed to do. So I'm so grateful for Sue. And I just think the world of her and so many people that I've met through my group classes. Sue's a little tiny thing, right? Little firecracker. That tool provided her the opportunity to allow those dogs to be dogs. After we taught the dogs what is expected, and we never had to be a jerk to these dogs. I never did. Sue never did, right? Sue's the everyday dog owner. I hope the people over there start to understand how many everyday dog owners will suffer when you take these tools away, okay? Now, let's jump into something very different. This is a very difficult situation. This is something that most people would have a hard time believing, but many people got to witness it. And this is one of my favorite examples, big time. So a few years ago, before COVID hit, I did a seminar out in Scotland with my buddy, Duke Ferguson. And a lot of people there, a lot of wonderful people, a lot of dog trainers there, a lot of dogs. And one person that still sticks out in my mind was I started talking to this one individual named David, super nice guy, but he didn't sound like the rest of the people that were there. He sounded more like me. And I said to him, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from New York." I was like, "New York?" And he brought a dog. He brought a dog that they rescued from the Korean meat market trade. Okay. He came all the way to Scotland from New York with this dog to get help from me. And I said to him, "Dude, you are out of your mind." I said, "Why did you travel all the way here on a plane across seas with this dog when I live, 14-hour drive, 2-hour flight away?" And he said, because I couldn't get in to see you in the States. You're booked for like 2 years. I said, holy crap. That's a committed dog trainer right there, right? Who really cares about this animal. Now, I want you to think about that. How much this individual, this great human, this dog trainer cares about this animal to go through that extent to try to get this dog help. This dog was in bad shape. He told me about what bad shape. Who knows what this dog had been through and seen, right? But I got to see it the first day we were in Scotland. We went on this massive pack walk, tons of dogs and people up in the mountains of Scotland. It was breathtaking. It was just life-changing. One of my all-time favorite things I ever did, right? But I'll never forget, David was standing off to the side with his dog, and someone approached him to talk to him. And this dog fell into the fetal position and just started screaming bloody murder. I mean, screaming without nothing being done. Nothing was being done to the dog, just screaming because of the individual that approached. It was heartbreaking. It was absolutely heartbreaking. Broke my heart. Very, very sad to see, right? So then I understood why he was so desperate for help. I was like, okay, this is going to be tough. So the next day, the regular seminar starts, and we're inside under a tent because the weather was bad, and it's just storming and pouring, raining, and we're in mud, and we're in this tent that got blown over. It was crazy. It was awful with the weather, but still amazing. So we just said, you know what? We're going to embrace it. We're going to do what we have to do. Well, at one point, Duke was teaching, and I can't stand around doing nothing. We had a lot of dogs to train. So I said, you know what, guys? I said, I'm going outside. I know the weather's bad, but I'm going outside to train some dogs, whoever wants to join me. And some people came outside and joined me, and David was one of them with this dog. Now, mind you, you can't touch this dog. The dog won't take food. You can't play with this dog. No interest in toys. No interest in anything. It's just a shell of a dog, just a shell of a creature, the beautiful creature that it should be. It's just an empty, hollow shell because of whatever this dog had been through and seen and experienced, right? That's why this beautiful human, David, went through this extent to bring this dog here. So what could we do with this dog? We tried a few things, right? Just wanted to see where the dog was at. And I've been doing this long enough to know that any of the normal things that any dog trainer would do, any force-free trainer, anyone who uses food and silly noises is not going to work. I know this. I don't care how much time you have, right? So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put an e-collar on this dog. And you saw the eyebrows go up on a lot of people. And they said, you're going to put an e-collar on this dog? I said, yeah. Yeah. And I said, listen, I can't promise that what I'm going to do is going to work, but there's a good chance it will. I said, but I could promise you this. I can guarantee you this. It's not going to make the dog worse. And of course, I'm not going to harm the dog. I know what I could do with this tool. I know what the tool is capable of when you use it in a way other than just an aversive, just punishment. Okay? I know because I've been doing it for a really long time with dogs that were just scared of the world and had nothing going for them in life. If I didn't do it dozens and dozens of times, then I wouldn't think of doing it here. So I said, yeah, we're going to put an e-collar on this dog. And some people got very angry at me. They got very angry at me. And I said, guys, just trust me. I said, just give me 10, 15 minutes, but trust me. I said, the dog's not going to get worse and I'm not going to harm the dog. Now, I'm telling you this because there's plenty of people that were there to see this, right? So we put the e-collar on the dog. Now, remember, again, that tail is tucked. It's shaking before we do anything. And it's not going to eat. It's not going to take food. Now, here's the power of negative reinforcement. But also, here's the power, and I've talked about this a lot, guys. Here is the power of that confusion of that tool when you first introduce it. That novelty of something so foreign to the animal is what destroys a lot of dogs with the e-collar. But if you know what you're doing, you could take that novelty and that confusion and you can use it to your benefit. Okay? What do I mean by that? I've talked about this ad nauseum, and a lot of people don't buy it. The people that have seen it understand it and believe me, right? The beautiful thing about when you're working with a dog that's scared of the world, that has nothing going for it, has no confidence, or when you're working with a dog that's aggressive towards dogs, aggressive towards people, right? These are the things that consume the dog's mind 24/7. The beautiful thing about that e-collar, no matter what kind of dog you're dealing with, that initial feeling of that stimulation turning on at a low level, I don't care how low it is, right? So the whole controversy about low level, some of it's accurate, some of it's very misplaced, okay? So now when that low level, and it has to be, because if it's not, then yes, you're going to destroy the dog, because then that confusion is going to also lead to chaos when there's panic, when it's too much. And when you create pain with that, that's where that chaos is going to hurt you. And we see it all the time, right? But when that e-collar comes on and it's at a low level, I can't even say it's aversive. It's confusing, but there is no discomfort at this stage. Let me say that there's no discomfort at this stage, right? So it comes on, and all of a sudden, when that dog feels that, and they all do it, there's confusion. They don't know what it is. They've never felt that before. It's totally foreign to them. Some of them will look behind them. Some of them will just freeze. Some of them will look around. But the beautiful thing is, when that confusion sets in, that dog cannot concentrate on the imaginary ghosts that are in their head. They can't do it. So for that split second, that fear goes away or that aggression goes away. And they're concentrating on going, what is this? And this is what the people trying to ban it don't understand. The people that are against the tools don't understand. Very one-dimensional how they think, right? So with this specific dog, tail tucked, shaking, wouldn't take food, when that came on, visibly the dog was confused, right? I didn't say anything. I wasn't giving commands. I wasn't doing baby talk. As the e-collar came on the low level, and I am holding that continuous button, but again, what you want to know, what you have to understand is even at the lowest level, if you keep that continuous button down for too long, that itself can become very aversive to the dog. So the trick is on, off. You want it on and off, but you want the dog to be the one to turn it off. But what is very important about that, something you can't ignore, is you have to be the one to teach the dog the way out, to help the dog the way out. That's where you're going to gain that trust and that confidence from the animal. You be the one to show the dog. You don't leave the dog guessing, trying to figure things out, especially a dog like that, because then you're going to add to the chaos and the fear, right? So now, as soon as that e-collar came on, I applied very gentle leash pressure without saying anything. And when that dog took one step toward me, that e-collar went away, and I said, hey, good job. Very nice. Very nice. And I would just be very gentle with the dog. That was good. You're giving the dog feedback, right? The dog's still confused. And then we take our time, we release it, 30 seconds later, a minute later, whatever, we do it again. Little bit of help with the leash. As the e-collar comes on, dog steps towards us, it goes away. Hey, very nice, buddy. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking. Good job, right? Now, some people can say I'm full of crap, but I've done this enough. Tens of thousands of people have done this enough. But of course, you have all the people that were there. Within 10, maybe 15 minutes, no longer than that, the tail started coming out little by little. Now we started getting more movement with the dog, and the dog started taking food. Now we're able to mark the behavior and give food and let the dog know, this is what I'm talking about, buddy, right? And then you get to look around and you see people, adults, including full-grown men, crying. People are there to see this. And they're like, I don't understand it. That's the problem with dog training today. Negative reinforcement is very powerful. Why? Why, right? Ivan teaches something very, very powerful in his course. And I don't share things from his course, but I think in this context, this is something that's very important, right? So I'm going to share this because it's universal, and people with experience and can train a dog, they understand this. If you take two puppies from birth, everything the same genes, right? Same genes, nothing different. You take one, and until the dog is 6 months old, let's say you teach the dog how to sit using positive reinforcement only. Positive reinforcement only. You take that second dog, you teach it how to sit for the first 6 months using negative reinforcement only. Everything's equal. At 6 months of age, you stop the positive reinforcement and you stop the negative reinforcement. Which dog will retain the behavior longer? Well, I'll tell you, most people are going to think the positive reinforcement, but that's not the case. The dog that learned through negative reinforcement will retain it longer. Why? With the positive reinforcement, once you stop rewarding using food, there's no more motivation there. That behavior can become extinct very quickly when there's nothing in it for the dog anymore, right? When you stop using rewards, that behavior is no longer rewarding. But with the negative reinforcement, escape avoidance training. When the dog learns how to escape so later on can avoid, negative reinforcement remains self-rewarding. The behavior becomes the reward itself, right? So that's something that Ivan's very brilliant at teaching in his course. And if you've ever studied Bart too with his system, very similar. Two of the best in the world know this, and they utilize this. And you never see their dogs look sad for a reason. So I've made it a goal for a very long time to learn from the best of the best. And it's my job to teach the best I can to help as many animals as I can for the everyday pet dog owner. And so when I see these tools being threatened, I'm like, come on, do you understand? I've been reached by tens of thousands of people. Someone mocked that comment the other day. It's the truth. I'm not a social media guru. I don't know what I'm doing on here. I don't know how this stuff works. But somehow I have, 14 million views on my YouTube channel, which are horrible, unprofessional videos. I rarely post, so it's not like I keep things going. But the way we teach this stuff, the way I teach this stuff, the way I've been teaching this e-collar stuff all these years, even when the handler who doesn't have a lot of experience is going to mess it up, and they all do, they're not going to mess up the dog. That's why I've always been so passionate about teaching it the way I do, which I didn't create or invent. I just bottled it in a way that the everyday dog owner can get the benefit and the power of the tool without ever needing to be an asshole to your dog. And the people in England and these other countries that want to ban it, they don't know this. No one's telling them, right? They think that trainers are using these tools to shock their dog to teach them how to sit. They don't know about a Korean meat market dog that had no life, and in 15 minutes, his life was changed. They don't know it, but I'm grateful there's people there to see it, right? That's powerful. that's really powerful. We have to get this kind of information to them. That's why I post the boring, stupid shit that I do, because it's real and people have to see it. That was a very, very special dog, very special case to me, right? But it showed, and the people there were like, holy shit. They would have never thought. They were mad at me. They were mad at me. But I know what that tool can do when you utilize it in a way that benefits the animal. You know, true that. Now, let's think about another dog. Years ago, this is an old case, but there's one of the first videos I posted on YouTube that got a lot of attention, right? It was a double-edged sword because after that, people only wanted to send me aggressive dogs. Keezy, the pit bull. There's a chapter in my book where, and I think it's on my website too, where I break down exactly how the e-collar was used. Why? Here's a pit bull mix that was supposed to be put down, right? He was deemed unfixable. So I go to see this dog, and back then I only did 3 private lessons. And when I met the dog, it's the first owner that I ever said, I don't know if I could help you. It's the first time I ever said that, but I was honest with them. I didn't know if I could help them. And I said, I'll take them on. I'll do the best I can. And I said, but I don't know if I can help you, but I'll work with you as long as I can, right? So it just so happened at that time, these little cameras came out. I forget what they were called, skinny little rectangular cameras. And my wife saw it and she bought it for me. And I was going to do the first lesson. She gave it to me. She goes, hey, see if you could film what you do. You know, people need to start seeing this stuff. I said, okay, whatever. So I go down there for the first lesson, and I gave the husband the camera. I said, do me a favor, film this if you can. He said, sure. So, you know, I go to work with the dog, and he's not happy. You know, he's got a muzzle on, and he wants to get to me. And every time that he does get to me, he goes after me, whatever. But in reality, the dog was very scared, right? He may not appear like that, but he was very scared. In that video, you see an e-collar on the dog, and at one point, you see the owner hand me the remote. So now, the whole world, because of the way that tool is looked at, what they see, what they believe is now I got the e-collar, I got the shock collar, I got the big stick. And as soon as that dog comes and tries to attack me, I'm going to punish it with the e-collar. Now, to be fair to the Forcefree community and to be fair to the people in the government that try to ban this tool, do people do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I could tell you this, it is 100% ineffective. It is a 100% failure rate. And that is something I've been trying to educate people on for a really long time. It doesn't work, and I don't do that. So people said, well, then what were you doing? So I broke it down and I explained exactly what I did step for step. And again, it's very basic, right? Very basic. Now, with this dog being muzzled, you can't touch him again. You can't give him food. He's going to take your hand off. He doesn't want food. And in reality, he's scared of me. So when he blows up and tries to kill somebody, why does he do that? Because that person he wants to get to backs off and leaves. He learns how to use the tool that works best, right? Or mom takes him and pulls him out of the situation to avoid something. He's always getting rewarded for being a savage. So if you watch the video, it's not the best work, right? I do things very different today, but I've never been heavy-handed on a dog. The only thing you see me doing is that when he comes and tries to get me, I stop him with the leash and I have a dominant dog collar on him so he can't get to me. But now, how is the e-collar utilized? When you see him at the end of the leash, very similar to the scared dog, the Korean meat market dog, right? I start tapping the e-collar, applying leash pressure, which he fights. And now the first step, he comes toward me, that e-collar stops, the leash pressure stops, and the dog freezes, right? Now, let's think about what just happened there. Again, if you go back to negative reinforcement and how powerful it is, right? And if you look at some popular systems out there that are so effective, what does the dog experience? The first time that e-collar comes on, once again, just like the fearful dog, there's confusion. The dog stops, super low levels, right? This isn't painful to the dog. It's not even at a discomfort level. Remember, if you look at my chart, first level is barely perceivable, right? Next level is minor discomfort. We're not even at minor discomfort yet. We're barely perceivable. So when it comes on, again, the dog thinks, what is that? But when that dog is saying, what is that? He can't be thinking, I am scared. I want out of here. And the only way I got to do it is I got to get this guy, right? He can't think that. He can't do both at once. So that confusion sets in. He stops being scared. He stops being aggressive. And coming toward me, coming toward the stressor, the thing that he fears and wants to hurt, makes that weird foreign sensation go away and the leash pressure go away. And he stops, right? So the first negative thing that happens in the dog's mind is that strange sensation. Oh, that's a bad thing almost, right? Because he doesn't know what it is. As he steps towards me, the first positive thing happens. It goes away. The dog just gets rewarded, right? Negative reinforcement. He escaped that weird feeling. And then something even more powerful happens. In the best case scenario, we mark it and we reward with something the dog loves, right? We make it even better, but we can't do that here. But in this case, what was even more powerful than that? He gets closer to me and nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens. He just stops. All right, good job. And then we reset. And we do that a few times. And through a few repetitions, he learns. This comes on. How do I remove this weird thing? Go towards that thing that I was just scared of. But every time I get closer to him, this thing that's freaking me out goes away and nothing bad is happening. Like, wait a second. Maybe this guy is not the worst thing in the world, right? This is all in the video. And I wrote it down so it's broken down, right? That's a chapter in my book, Keezy. Now, I take the dog, I take the leash, and I go for a walk. I remove him from the owners, but I go to where they can watch so they don't think I'm doing anything bad to their dog. But I remove him from part of what makes him powerful and fearful all at the same time, right? These behaviors were created inside the home. He came to them bad. He had a bad story. But then it got worse because people take a dog like that into their home. They feel sorry for him. They're emotionally weak. So they cater to the dog and coddle the dog, and they create a bigger monster. And they don't do it on purpose, right? But that's what the everyday dog owner does because they think they're doing the right thing because most people are good and most people want to do right by the animal. But they do the opposite of what the animal needs, right? So now I take him for a walk and we just walking down the street. Now, again, how is the e-collar utilized there? Every time I turned 180 degrees to walk the opposite direction, I just went tap, tap without saying anything. That meant just follow me, right? And as he turns to come with the thing that he wants to get to or the thing he fears, that tap, tap stops. We do a little walking. I turn 180 degrees, tap, tap. That means follow me. Negative reinforcement, escape avoidance training. The dog is learning how to escape that weird thing because later on he's going to know how to avoid it. Most people are using negative reinforcement as punishment wrongly and at very punitive levels that are creating more chaos than clarity in the animal. It's not a popular statement, but it's a fact. And I've seen it over and over and over. Just this year alone, almost 1,000 people at the seminars. And we see it over and over and over, right? Now, I do 2 lessons with that dog. Lesson 3, I decide to take Bruno, my Rottweiler. This is the first time I'm bringing him with me. On this third lesson is where I said I'm going to attempt to take the muzzle off today. I think it's time, right? Bruno was incredible at reading dogs. That's why I brought him. But at the same time, think I probably was a little scared. If it goes bad, at least he's there to keep me safe, right? So what you don't see on the video is I take that dog away from the house. We go for a walk. Bruno's off leash with me, and we're walking down the street. And I go to remove the muzzle, and Bruno got all weird with me. He acted very funny with me, and I know what that meant. He's telling me it's not ready, dude. Now, people will laugh at that, but I tell you what, there was one other time I didn't listen to what he was trying to tell me, and I got him attacked by another Rottweiler. So I know what my dog's trying to do very, very clearly now. So when he started acting funny with me, and at this point, he had not greeted this dog, right? I backed off, and we just continued to walk. A few minutes later, I go to take it off again. Bruno does the same exact thing. So, okay, he's not ready. Within 5 minutes, I think, after that, all of a sudden, Bruno's demeanor changes. His nub starts going, and he says hello to the dog and greets the dog. And in the video, that's when you see I pop the muzzle off. We go walking down the street, and the husband and wife are bawling their eyes out. That dog started coming to group classes after that day and started going to daycare. Never had another problem with that dog. Never had another problem with that dog. But I want to say this as loud as I can for the Zach Georges and the Victoria Stillwells and the people in England that are on the committee trying to ban these tools. I want to say this very loud. I want to repeat this many times. I never once punished that dog's aggression. I never once punished that dog with the e-collar. Not a single time. But I certainly got the benefit of that tool by understanding how the dog learns, by understanding negative reinforcement, by understanding behavior and escape avoidance training, and by looking at the dog and listening to what he feels and what he needs. And there's a lot of good people out there doing the same that do wonderful things with all tools and food, right? And when it comes to, listen, I'm not a purely positive trainer, but man, I'm not far from it. I'm not far from it, right? I'm not far from it. You understand what I'm saying? Not against punishment. Do I have to use it often? No. Am I teaching with it? No. Like, it's so rare that I have a dog here for a board and train that will be punished for anything. It's a lot of positive reinforcement. Then I'm proofing with negative reinforcement, right? Negative punishment, right? But punishment, you find yourself punishing dogs every day, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. You got to up your game. You understand? So I can give you dog after dog after dog, right? And you guys have seen a lot of them. I could just give you dogs that you've seen, either at seminars. Okay, I'll give you one more. Here's a quick one. So this happened a couple weeks ago at one of my seminars, right? Very difficult dog. This young lady brings a lot of difficult dogs from this rescue that deals with mostly pit bulls, right? Really serious dogs. Very serious dogs, like dogs that will hurt you, will bite you, right? I'll give you an example. One dog she brought out, I met a few months ago. I'm always honest, right? I'll tell you, this dog, we could fix. This is a good dog. We could do right with this dog, no doubt about it. But there's this one dog, I said, this dog's a problem. And then they questioned that, right? They doubted it. I said, let me show you. I put the bite suit on and just went and talked to her. We did a few things, and boom, lunged in, grabbed my crotch, my inside thigh, gave me a good hard bite. That's why bite suits are so valuable, right? So she brings very serious dogs. So just a couple of weeks ago, brought a dog out. over the top, just focused on getting to dogs, like over the top, right? When my other buddy, when Jay took him to work with him, everything Jay did with 99% of the dogs, they would finally start getting into biting something. Even when it comes to, this fur that he uses when dogs have no interest in food or tug, when he takes this tug out that's made out of real animal fur, that they all, okay, let's do this, right? And he's a brilliant trainer. Jay is brilliant, the most underrated trainer you'll ever see, even though the people that work with him know how good he is, right? He could bring out the best in the dog very quickly. None of that stuff was going to be effective with this dog we started seeing. He was really over the top, okay? So that evening, I told this young lady that we've worked with a lot, I said, we're going to put the e-collar on this dog, all right? Now, again, this dog wouldn't take food. He wouldn't play. He wouldn't take dogs, nothing. So that evening, we start training. I do all the same things from the start, no prior training with this dog that I did with the last 2 or 3 dogs I just talked to you about. Same stuff. That dog was taking food within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes. And all of a sudden now, because in order to better his situation and make sense to him, he had to start responding to his handler. Now, all of a sudden, it's not that difficult to get him away from going after dogs. But not only is he not going after dogs, but now he's actually interacting and taking food. Now he's got clarity all of a sudden, right? Did we once punish that dog for trying to get to a dog? No. You can't do that like that quick from the start. Can't do it. I've done that once in my life at a seminar on a live Facebook thing, because at that time, it's what I thought I had to do really quick one time to just get the dog out of this psychosis, right? We didn't have to punish that dog. Negative reinforcement, especially low-level negative reinforcement, when you have a dog that's struggling upstairs, is unbelievably powerful. And so this video here that I'm doing may be 100% waste of time, and it probably is. But I hope that just one person over there in England could look at it, look at these stories, can confirm them because they're out there. There's videos, there's plenty of witnesses. I'm only talking about dogs that people have seen, right? And say, wait a second, no one ever told us that these tools could be used at that. And that's the statement that they use. You know how I know? Because I work with a lot of Forcefree people all the time. When I started doing seminars, the people who come to my seminars know this. What happened was, in the beginning, people from the Forcefree side, like radical people, started coming to my seminars, like making believe they're someone else. And they came to disrupt things and to hate me, right? And the only way I know that is no one's ever disrupted one of my seminars. But the first time that someone did that, they came up to me after the seminar and said, I have to tell you something. And I said, what's that? They said, I came here to hate you and to ruin your weekend. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said she's a Forcefree trainer and she's very anti-punishment, very anti-e-collar. And she said, this isn't what I expected. And I didn't know you could use the tools that way. And she completely changed her mind. And so from every seminar after that, I used to tell that story. It doesn't happen anymore. I used to tell that story. And then sometimes by lunchtime on the first day, always by the end of the seminar, someone would come up to me and say, I'm that person. And I say, what person? I came to hate you. I came to disrupt things. And I didn't know that you could use tools this way, right? But if these people are so anti-tools and anti-punishment because they truly care about the animals, and a lot of these people are, I would say the majority of them are, right? The majority of good Forcefree trainers, and there's a lot of very, very talented Forcefree trainers out there, believe me when I tell you, And I could associate and understand them a lot more than I can some of the big name YouTube, so-called balance trainers that I would never want to be associated with. They hurt us all, right? But when these Forcefree people think about tools, that's who they see. And if they're so popular and have such a big following on the balance side, they assume that's what we all do. And so I've been very vocal against some of these people, and I've gotten a lot of hate for it. And it bothers me when I see people I like and respect, when I see them sharing their stuff. And I know you share it out of good intentions because they're good writers, but you have no idea what they're doing to dogs and how much they hurt us all. How much they hurt us all. It's not good. So maybe this is wishful thinking. Breaks my heart because I know what's going to happen in England, just like the other countries I've been to. It breaks my heart because I know how hard James Penrith works, how hard Danny Wells works, and how many trainers out there are trying to fight this. Breaks my heart. And I don't know if my big mouth can do anything to help. But I hope people share this, and I don't ask for people to share my videos. And I hope just one person that can make a difference in this band sees it and goes, I didn't, is that true? Is this guy full of shit? Let's check this out. Let's back up what he's saying. Is he making this up, or is these things possible? That's what I hope. And I hope it just gives someone pause to maybe hold back and say, wait a second. If you could take a dog from a Korean meat market, and I'm not the best dog trainer in the world. If I could do it, anyone can do it, right? Wait a second. Maybe we're making a mistake at getting rid of the tools. Maybe we're looking in the wrong direction here, okay? So if you could share this, guys, I'd appreciate it very much, because not on my behalf, but on James' behalf and Danny's behalf and all the people in England that really need this to stop. Really need it to stop. I hope it does something. And guys, again, James, Danny, all the people that are fighting, if there's something else we could do, just keep telling us. I know we have our private group where we talk, but if there's something more we could do, just keep telling us, okay? I appreciate you guys tuning in the middle of the day. Have a good one, guys, and I hope it works out.